Hello, Oh Baby Besties. Thank you for joining us today for our first ever live interview. Today, we're at the Oh Baby HQ, and we're bringing you a really awesome discussion with Rachel Nix. She is the founder of the Birth Queen organization. And today, we're going to chat with her about all things motherhood, breastfeeding, and most importantly, the Black maternal health crisis. So, Rachel is an absolute force of nature. She is an actor, she's a model, she is a doula. She is the mother of two beautiful boys. She is a pre and postpartum trainer, and she is the founder of the Birth Queen organization working for Black maternal health. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And for those of you who don't know, the Black maternal health crisis is a cause really close to our hearts here at Oh Baby. We donated 13% of our total sales last year to Birth Queen, not profits, total sales. And we are really thrilled to continue with this work and supporting Black maternal health going forward as we continue to grow. So let's dig into our conversation. Rachel, how would you like to kick it off? You said you wanted to talk about working in breastfeeding as a mom.
Most women want to breastfeed. I think that's a fair general statement. And there is a sense of nervousness surrounding it. And then majority of women that become moms work. And so there's this pressure of how am I going to breastfeed and work and be a mom and work? There's a lot of questions about work and the pressure of work that is put on a mother. Number one, I would like to start by saying, because I don't want to forget, never ask for what you need, tell people what you need. As women, by and large, we've been raised to make people feel comfortable and we're nurturers. But you go and eat your lunch, and the people that you work with go get their lunch when they want to get their lunch by and large, and they go get a coffee or have a smoke break if they smoke or go pee when they want to. Like, it's not like they're asking for permission about all of these needs that they have. So your baby has needs and your body provides that need, which is milk. And so you need to have what you need in place for yourself and for your baby. And so what you have to understand is if those things aren't currently in place, oftentimes it's because no one else has done it or requested it. I am a breastfeeding mom. I need to pump this many times a day. I need this space to do that and make it happen. Now, I know I make things sound really simple and easy. A friend was just laughing about that today on the phone with me, but it just is. Your baby needs to eat.
Sure. And we tend to overcomplicate things, like you said, trying to people please, and maybe an employer isn't not supportive. It's just that they've never done it before. So they didn't think of it. Of course, they didn't think of it because they're not a breastfeeding mom. So
and they might respond like, you need that every 2 hours. And you go, yes, I do.
Yes.
Well, for how long? And whatever that is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might have a baby that's going through a growth spurt and you have a lot of stress, so you're not producing enough. Have the baby come to your job site if you have that luxury. Now, this is a luxury thing. Not all of us are able to have that. But if there is so much pressure on you that you're like, I hate pumping, it's so stressful, I'm not feeling successful at it, I'm not getting as much when I pump during the day, then shake it up. And if I'm not saying necessarily every single day, Monday through Friday, but if you can also have baby come to you for one of those feeds during your day, or you go to baby for one of those feeds, that also is a wonderful solution. Which brings me to, it's not common knowledge that frequency over duration is your best friend. So there are now amazing companies like LV, which I'm a really big fan of, or Willow, that are like, hands-free pumps. There are also a lot of silicone pumps. LV just created one. There's also Haka. Haka like hangs off your breast. So that's a little like, it's like no shade to Haka, but LV like did it a little better where it can like pop it to your breast and like no one sees it. And the biggest thing is it can't spill.
Right. The Haka can easily get knocked off. I've dropped, 5 ounces of Haka milk onto a furry beanbag chair, which was not a fun way to
cry. So those are great because it's just hands-free and the body responds to stress. So when you bring out this huge machine and the sound of it, your body's like, oh, I don't really want to do this. So a lot of times you don't produce as much milk. And there is The other success I also had was with the hand pump. So I would be at an intermission doing a show on Broadway and just pop out my hand pump, my Medela hand pump. There's a bunch of different ones, but Medela worked for me. And by the way, I'm not getting paid for anything. I'm just sharing.
Manila, if you're listening and you would like to sponsor Rachel with
anybody wants to sponsor me, great. But I would just pop it and I could get literally in 5 minutes, I think I could get 4 ounces. I would be like, and I think there was something about it being you producing your own milk versus like a machine. And it just worked. It also helped because I had a lull at some point with baby 1 and I used the Spectra and that was fine. And my friend was like, try a hand pump. And there was just something different. And I had a lot more milk production and
that's
success.
great advice.
Yeah. And always know that your baby is more efficient and effective than a pump will ever be.
Absolutely.
So your baby could feed for like 2 minutes and be full or 5.
Yep.
And you can sit and pump for like 15 and be like, oh my God, I'm not creating enough. So you don't need to pump and measure milk. Feed your baby when they're satiated. They'll tell you, their hands will soften, they'll take a nap, they'll burp or spit up and they're happy. But yeah, I think that's what I would say about the work piece, and never, 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 never give up your breastfeeding journey because of work.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, don't do it.
So do you have any tips for getting back into a pumping routine after taking a break?
Frequency, just coming to it often, and creating your surroundings that produce oxytocin. So what allows the body to dilate is oxytocin, and what oftentimes we're given is a synthetic form, which we all know as Pitocin.
Right.
And the same is true for breastfeeding. When the body is relaxed and calm, it produces milk. If you're stressed and producing adrenaline and cortisol, you're not going to let down in the same way. And so, it's very easy for me to be like, calm down, honey, don't stress. And I don't mean that in like a patronizing way, but is it a bubble bath?
You don't do it while you're driving, which is what I did this morning.
Yeah, I've done that a ton, and it's been efficient and effective, but like it was already kind of my flow, for
exactly.
the place. And for me, I was feeling like, mommy with the mostest, I'm going to work and then I'm feeding my baby and I'm going to go get my nails done. And I was feeling in my flow, but like, if you're feeling kind of off your flow, you're like, I got to do this. Then the body's kind of like, well, why, So, I know someone's going to be like, did she just say I have an orgasm? I did say that. Also sex or self-pleasure can also help like really release and calm yourself. Anywhere from a bubble bath to an orgasm, anywhere in between those things are all really good. And the biggest thing is trying to pump while you're holding your baby or breastfeeding your baby. It gets harder as they get bigger because they will like kick it or pull it. But that's another great solution.
That's fantastic advice. All of the above. Yes to all of the above.
Yes.
Thank you. So let's talk about the Black maternal health crisis, what it is and how we got here.
So I'm a big believer in, just addressing a problem and making sure we know about it. So Birth Queen is here to make sure that everyone knows what this crisis is and how we got here, because you can't really fix a problem unless you know how it started. So for those of you who are listening, who are unaware of the Black maternal health crisis, we do have a crisis where Black women and birthing people are dying at 3 to 5 times the rate on average nationwide during childbirth versus their white counterparts. And in places like New York City, it's upwards of 12 times the rate. And Black women's breastfeeding rates are on average around 35%, which is far lower than white women and Hispanic women. And so the other thing that's really important to understand, this is not like a lot of people like to be like, it's a low income issue. It's a Black and brown issue. It's an immigrant issue. It's not. It's a Black specific issue across the spectrum of socioeconomics. And the reason for that is in the 1860s, when Dr. Marion Sims was practicing the cesarean section, he practiced on slaves, which were Black women, without anesthesia. And the census shows that the majority of them were having mixed race babies, which tells us they were raped first. So many of them survived this cesarean section without anesthesia. And he deduced that Black women do not feel pain at the same rate as white women do. And that holds true today. So Black women are dying because of racism. And what does that look like? That's conscious and unconscious bias in saying, like, we've all probably maybe at one point in our lives looked at a Black woman and been like, she's so tough, she's so strong. Well, that narrative started in the 1860s. And so we are strong, but like if we're hemorrhaging after our baby is born, we're not strong enough to survive that, right? So if I say something's wrong or I'm in pain and someone goes, oh, you're fine, then I'm not fine and I die. And maybe my baby does, right? So when you say racism is killing Black women in childbirth, that is a large statement that makes all of us uncomfortable, trust me, including me as a Black woman. Mm-hmm. But when you get specific and granular, that's what it means. Right. There are scenarios where there's like flat out negligence, and there's scenarios that are just, ignorance. And so what we have to do is address that and undo medical racism that's been in our system for hundreds of years. But the other thing is, we know the real solution right now that's super tangible is if Black women are cared for by Black women, there are positive outcomes. And it's also important to understand that obstetrics is a very young and specific practice, and it's one aspect of childbirth. Babies come out of vaginas. That's what they're supposed to do. And in our country, some practitioners have cesarean rates of over 50, 60, and 75%.
A huge red flag, right?
Right. And to me, this is still high. 11% or under should be our C-section rate. And in America, it's like 40 plus.
Right.
Right. So when I was young and first learning about this, I was like, screw OBs. OBs are the bad guy. No, OBs have one toolbox. Guess what they do? They are trained to cut, and they're really good at that. And that's awesome if I need to be cut. Mm-hmm. Midwives know how to catch babies and palpate and like deal with shoulder dystocia and all kinds of things, which is amazing, right? Lactation consultants know how to help you breastfeed. Doulas know how to coach you. Everybody has a role, right? And so what we need to get back to is a holistic approach of centering mom. And unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic society. OBs charge a lot of money and make a lot of money when they cut you. $80,000 for a C-section, $8,000 for a midwife. But right. Guess who supports the $80,000? Insurance companies. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that you need to be aware of when you enter, because it's not like a heart surgery where you don't have a say. Sure. You are the center of your birth experience, because guess what, mama? The birth don't happen without you. There's no baby without a mommy. There's no show without mama. That's just how it goes. And so we've gotten too far away from taking mom out of the center, hence the title of my nonprofit, Birth Queen, because I believe every mother is a birth queen and she should be treated as such. So.
Thank you so much for giving such a comprehensive background, because we have so many, it's such a big issue and it can seem overwhelming because there's so many different parts to it, right? We have hundreds of years of brutality and non-consensual experimentation, not just on the cesarean sections, but on all kinds of gynecological surgeries, right? So we have modern gynecology built on brutality towards slaves, frankly. And then I want to underscore that, Black women are doing much better given care by Black health providers. And this goes to even people like Serena Williams and Beyonce, who have the most, fame, fortune, all the resources, and even women of their caliber and standing are dealing with life-threatening issues in their maternal care. Yeah. So it goes beyond.
Yeah. I mean, and that story is really real, and it gives me full body chills. Like Serena's story, she was going to hemorrhage and die. And it took her very wealthy white husband to be like, everybody in here needs to listen to my wife and
Mhm.
get to working to save her life. And
Exactly.
had she not had a white husband who was rich and powerful, she probably would.
Right. We don't know what
That
would
is
have happened. So what does
right.
that mean for the average person? Like
Right. And
that's what
that's,
scares.
yeah. And for Black male partners, they're terrified. Like the father of my children, we had a COVID baby. He was afraid to go in the hallway. Right. Because just we had our son like peak 2020, crazy COVID,
Right.
pandemic, race relations, politics. And I
Yes.
remember being like, can you just go? And he's like, I don't want to like go in the hallway.
I can't leave your side, basically.
He didn't want to, it was more, he was afraid for himself too.
Mhm.
Because I was right after Ahmaud Arbery and all of that. Like he's
Mhm.
like, I don't want to like piss anybody off or anybody get confused about anything. So you have to understand that our men feel completely emasculated and unempowered to protect us
Mhm.
when they know things are off because they don't want to get thrown out or arrested or whatever. So they're just kind of also a lot of times you can see those partners just kind of going along. And historically, you know, you go from Black people not being allowed in hospitals to being allowed in hospitals to just agreeing whatever, you know, the whole white coat syndrome.
Sure.
And it's really important, people who listen to this, listen, I have done as a doula enough. I have been by the side of a lot of well-to-do white women, and white women are not treated with respect in their birth. So what you have to understand, this is not just a Black issue. Maternal health across the board needs a lot of attention and a lot of work. Women are not respected. We can see with the way Hillary Clinton was treated. We can see with, you know, Ketanji Brown Jackson, women are disrespected. Now, if you add Black on that, if you add youth on that, if you add low economic status, if you add immigrant on that, then it's just like boom, boom, boom. Like you're way more disrespected. But if you have a judge that went to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you go talk to her like that? So what? Like on national television.
Right.
And again, when things like that happen, when Serena's story happens, you're like, where does that leave everyone else? That leaves them 6 feet under.
Enter birth queen.
Right. That's why, you know, when people are like, why? I'm like, well, that part. Because I had enough and I think for people who are like, you know, with all my free time, how I did that. So I founded Birth Queen with a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. But I was aware of my privilege as a Black woman. I have education, I have support. I had the financial means to do this. It is expensive to have a doula. It is expensive to take classes. It is expensive and time consuming to do all of these things, but it's necessary, right? And it is also scary to me that midwifery was a tradition from Africa that got kind of pulled and that got taken from African women that became African American women and then became like a trendy white thing. So then what's scary is you have Black women being like, well, I don't know, what's a midwife or a doula? Like that's a white thing or a rich white woman thing. I'm like, no, it's our thing. Like that we created that. We had babies in communion at home and it was safe. And so all women need to understand women did not start dying during childbirth at the rate at which they die until white men entered trying to make money. And I get it. They were like, there's a lot of women that have babies. Like, we might as well charge for it. We can make a whole like living off of this. So it wasn't like malintent or anything like that, but they didn't have the skills, which enters like misogyny and all of those things. Sure. They didn't respect the midwives. They didn't ask them how they did things. They just said, well, I'm going to do it my way. And when they didn't wash their hands, they didn't palpate, they didn't do all these things. And they put us in wards, disease spread. They didn't have the tools and we started to die. Right. And that's what happened. And I'm not demonizing them, but that's the history of now why women are like thinking I have to be in a hospital and I have to like have a doctor and I have to have meds and you don't, you're not broken. The system is broken. Right. And that's really important for us to understand.
Yeah, I think it's important to also remember that OBs have not witnessed a biologically normal birth as a part of their medical training. So that learning that to me was just a bit of a mind explosion when you really think about it, to have never witnessed a biologically normal birth. And the other thing, you know, I've got a lot of doctors in my family and, you know, have a lot of respect. I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid, like my dad. And I think that the average person thinks to themselves about this crisis affecting Black women primarily. You know, doctors train their whole lives to help people, right? They want to help people. They go into debt. They take on all of these years of study to help people. So why would they hurt their own patients, you know, like, and I think just to unlock that kind of questionable, difficult discussion for a moment, it's that so much of this bias is unconscious. Like you said, so much of it is built into the medical practice. I read a study recently that amongst medical students today, that many of them, the majority of them, actually believed that Black people's skin was thicker than white people's skin, as in like pain receptors and all of these ideas about toughness and resilience and, you know, not needing as much intervention. So all of that can be really unconscious and insidious and just kind of flows under the surface of well-meaning care providers. So this is real and it needs to be addressed. And I just wanted to kind of lead into what some of your goals are with Birth Queen into that conversation.
No, I think that's excellent because your perspective is helpful for doctors and white people to say like, what, I'm not trying to hurt. Because I had a conversation with, you know, OB from the Bay and she's like, well, why she just didn't understand. She's like, well, I'm not the problem. I'm like, well, boo, you are. Like, but the fact that you don't think you're the problem is the problem because you're not really open to other perspectives. And so that's really our failure, is that one perspective is not the whole. So yeah, so what the goal of Birth Queen is number one, awareness and advocacy, because we got to start there. Education. And I have a very like full vision of all the things we're going to do, but in its simplest form, we're going to create awareness about the crisis and most importantly, implement solutions. So providing education resources and support to Black birthing people with midwives, doulas, and lactation counselors, and funding trainings for more Black birth workers, midwife, doula, lactation, and then pairing. But I would love for Birth Queen to house all of the information and tools and access to things and resources, both for Black birthing people and allies alike. And, you know, because I'm speaking to you, it could be anywhere from an in-kind donation to brand partnerships to, you know, photographers donating free, you know, maternity and newborn shoots to Black families, to chefs giving pre and postnatal meals to families. It doesn't have to just be like medical provider kind of birth specific, right? Because postpartum is also a long time and you need support. And if you don't have the resources to have hired help or, you know, a breast pump or lactation, there's so many things, right? Or take a nap. All of those things matter. And the photo shoot piece to me is fun because like you should feel like a birth queen. You should be able to enjoy this time of your life. And Black women are afraid that they're going to die and their babies are going to die. And so that is problematic to me and should be problematic to everyone and it shouldn't just be a problem for women in general. Men should ask themselves, oh my God, what if I was worried about the mother of my child coming home with me? Well, Black families are worried about that. I know a lot of Black fathers that are not, there's not just single moms. There are a lot of single Black dads out here because of this crisis. And where do they do, fighting for custody? 2 years later, you kill the mother of his child and you don't let him have full custody of his child?
Wow.
Okay, right. I mean, it just goes, right. Your brain is like.
It is, yeah.
I saw him post the other day. I'm like, what do you mean you just got custody of him? It's 2 years later. But you're his dad. That's a whole nother thing. But yes, so this is why I'm doing the work. So I think it's just important. I think some people feel like, well, I don't have $1 million to give to the cause. You have 5 or 1. That's still something. And just talking about it, sharing this interview. Problems such as this are large and can feel like, I can't do this. Trust me. I've had moments in my bed where I'm going, girl, what are you doing? I'm doing something, right? And so you too can do something, and together we could do a lot. And that's how we have to think about any crisis. Otherwise, it's debilitating.
Right. Because to take on systemic racism in the medical field across all of the other systems in America is so daunting. So I love what you've said, even if it's a chef service, even if it's photography, even if it's $5, every little bit helps the cause and is moving it forward in the direction that we all want to go. I love that.
Yeah.
So Rachel, I've got a personal question for you. So you are so busy in your career. You're a mother of 2 young, beautiful boys. Motherhood itself is so all consuming, right? You have a gazillion things to do and people to care for, but yet you went outside yourself to help community and to create an organization. Just share what inspired you to do that and kind of how you felt you were able to do that.
It's twofold. The first thing, I question, because it's like so real as my experience as a Black woman, but I'm aware of my packaging. I am an acceptable Black woman. I have curly hair. I'm thin. I went to Juilliard. I had AP and honors classes. I'm light skinned. I'm aware of that stuff. And with that is privilege. It doesn't make me less Black. It doesn't make my life easier. Many people think that, no, but it does award me privileges. I do not get stopped and frisked. You know what I mean? And I'm aware of that. And every time my people do, it's upsetting to me, because I'm like, if I look like them, I would be getting frisked in this moment. So that is why I feel responsible to my people to make the time to affect change as a result of my privilege. And I had anxiety attacks every single night of my 3rd trimester, and everyone blamed the pregnancy and the baby. And then at first I did, and I went, wait. I don't have trouble sleeping. I've had a baby and didn't have trouble sleeping. This is racism. I'm afraid of having another Black son. I was pregnant with Baldwin in the summer of 2020 when Black men were being hunted as sport. I was horrified. I was terrified. And so then I had a very vivid image to collect Black birth stories like 2 weeks before giving birth to him, went to the gram and emailed and text friends. And a lot of Black women were like, I'll share my story. Really powerful in public to super private and like conservative. I said, okay, something's here. And that was September 2020. After meaningful like thought, meditation, and conversation, mainly with people who just like pushed me, they're like, yeah, you're going to go bigger. And I was like, what do you mean? Like not profit? Like what? My mom and my brother are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, duh, like we've done that. And so I just did it. And if I'm honest, those are like tangible reasons. And I believe in a higher power, and I believe my steps have been ordered. And I am just following, because there's absolutely no way that all of the things that have transpired thus far in 1 year are possible. Like literally, raising almost over 70,000, speaking on a global stage with like, people from the UN. I'm like, what? Like, how is this even happening? And so it's happening because, this story is crazy. So Bruce McIntyre lost his partner, and that's who I was referencing earlier. He's basically the new kind of father face of the movement, the Black maternal health crisis. And Amber Rose Isaacs died 2 years ago. And we were introduced last year, right when I launched. We were on an activist call. And then we both got an award a couple months back, and we were messaging, and Tanya Lee, Spike Lee's wife, did a doc that made it to Sundance called Aftershock, about his life and Amari, 2 single dads who lost their partners. And, I'm like, how's it going? And we got to work together. And he was like, yeah, we're going to work together. And he was like, I figured out why I knew you and how. And I said, what? He said, Amber used to take your classes on the mirror.
Oh my God.
My whole body, I'm sitting in my bed right now. I was laying in bed and I started sobbing because I was feeling, for any number of reasons, like, what am I doing? Do I have the fuel to do this? Can I do this? I had been a little bit in that space. And I feel like Amber embodied my body and was like, you're doing this.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? And it's for Amber. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
She was 28. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, it's like, I can't, like, people are coming and you care and people care. And I'm just trying to like put all the dots together and just make it do what it do and just pray that something's going to happen. And that's just it. And so if anyone has a dream or a thought, and then they go, ugh, if that's that little voice in you, and then just like signs, don't ignore them. Yeah. They're happening for a reason. And yes, it can seem so crazy, but if it fuels you, and it's for good, then just throw yourself at it. And I know people think I'm a complete crazy person because I am like the spaghetti theory. I just kind of like throw noodles and see what sticks. And like, if it falls, it wasn't meant to be. And I just keep going. Like,
you're crazy. I think people think you're a visionary. I think people think you're an incredibly talented activist and organizer and just a dynamo. So
that hit me. Thank you. Thank you. So it's a beautiful, scary journey, but it's really exciting. And I'm brought to tears because this isn't no accident. You having the chutzpah to do what you've done with Oh Baby, to leave like safe corporate environment as a woman, to follow your dreams and to be a mom and an entrepreneur. It is tiring. It's scary. There's no direct path.
Right.
But I tell people there's a very large difference between being unfulfilled and tired and like drained versus being empowered and excited and tired and
absolutely
and tired. They're very different tireds,
They are.
Yeah, right. So, and I feel like you're in your flow, like you're in that flowy tired. It's just like it's just very different.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. That is incredibly powerful and inspiring and bittersweet, but you created something really beautiful from that whole situation. And just our hats are off to you, and just so proud of you and what you've been able to accomplish. And we know that the sky is the limit as well. And we're here for the ride. And we're here to support you as well. So we just want you to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. I know you've got a busy schedule and you carved out this chat. It was so much fun to catch up with you and to share Birth Queen with our audience. Please like, share, comment, share this video with anyone you think would be interested, anyone who you might not know if they're interested, but they would be interested.
Yeah, just share it anyway. It's like the people that you definitely think won't be interested.